again, this is Diana Catherine Ploppa, and I am at the CNM TV studios with another edition of Indie Reads TV, brought to you by Pages Promotions. Today, in the studio with me, we have Ted Lemon. That would be him. In fact, that picture, Ted, was taken at the book festival we did over the summer, right?
Yeah, in June.
Yeah. That was fun.
That was very fun.
We had a good time, yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is Ted, and that's Ted in picture form, and this is Ted live. So glad you can make it out tonight.
Sure,
I appreciate
no problem.
it.
Happy to be here. Happy that you asked.
Of course. I mean, you know, what we do here is we promote authors and the great stuff that they do, and with a special focus, as you know, on indie authors.
Right.
And you're a debut author.
I am.
So your book is brand new to the world. Mm-hmm. It's just birthed how
kind
long
of
ago?
Brand new. 2016. So
okay.
Kind of
couple
brand
years
new.
old.
Couple years.
Still kind of
still
toddling around.
Still a baby, yeah.
So this is the book we're talking about, everybody. This is The Troubling Adventures of Jesse and Owen. This is a great book. I read this book, I think it was 2.5 hours. I think it took me to read it.
Yeah, it's pretty short, but full of content.
Yes, and it's a middle grade book. So that's why it took me 2.5 hours, because it's for a lower reading level than my brain lives at. But I really, really enjoyed it. I was very impressed with the storytelling. Character development was fabulous. As a debut author, I think you really hit it out of the park here.
Oh, thank you.
I think you did a great job with this.
Your actual your review is one of my most prized possessions.
Yeah, I'm glad you think so.
You know, that was the one of the best reviews I've received, and it was an honor to get it from you, but also just to have something like that associated with my book, about my book.
Well,
you know,
it was
awesome.
all true. I mean, I certainly would never steer you wrong,
No.
and if I thought it was bunk, I would have told you so.
Right.
You know?
And I expect that from
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
This is a great story. Can you just give us, I'm going to throw it back up here on the screen again. Can you just give us a quick synopsis?
Sure. It's very, very simple. I wrote it about two boys living at a trailer park. They're 9 years old, and they are polar opposites of one another, but they blend perfectly. And one of my favorite things about it is being opposites. It's kind of nice to see how they accept one another for who they are, and they learn quite a bit from each other.
Absolutely.
And you can see throughout the book the effect that each one is having on the other.
Yeah, that was an element that I really enjoyed about the book, is that the characters grew together. They didn't, in some ways they grew in opposite directions. Being polar opposites themselves, they tended to become a little bit more like each other. One, you know, when they first met, one was going east and one was going west,
Right.
and as the story progresses, they start to run more parallel to each other. They start to come together.
Yeah.
And they start to augment a little bit, taking on a little bit of each other's personalities a little bit, which I think best friends do over time in real life.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
That's been my experience. And the book itself is a very it's a boys will be boys type of book. One of the boys, Jesse, he is a spirited young man, I should say.
Right.
He can be a bit hard to handle. He's had friends that their parents have refused to let their kids hang out with him. He tends to just get bored very easily, and
He's a little bit of a wild child.
yeah, he has to go to great lengths to entertain himself, and that's where Owen comes in. Being new to the trailer park, Owen is a very introspective person. He doesn't have, or he's not used to having friends, and he just desperately wants to have a friend. And it just so happens he gets his polar opposite, and they learn from each other. And while they do have an effect on each other and start to mirror each other, that's just the beginning.
Right.
I actually I'm writing the second book in that series, or what I envision to be a series right now, and the first book is, like I said, just the beginning. That relationship is just going to go further, and it's going to get deeper. The trouble that they get into
Well,
also gets deeper.
as boys will be boys,
Right.
the trouble gets a little more intense as time goes on.
Yeah.
Just so that moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents out there who are watching today get an idea, what age group would you target this book for?
I have always told people that even though the subject matter tends to reflect what I call real life, 9 years old is, even though the characters are 9 years old, 8 to 9 years old, as far as the readers, that's perfect for the starting point. I've had older children read it, and they've enjoyed it as well. That's one of the compliments I've gotten from a lot of the kids, is that they really do appreciate how it feels like real life.
Well, they can relate to it. You know, these
very
these
relatable.
characters are their age. I imagine at 8, 9, 10 years old, they're going to be reading that. Maybe 11 and 12 even are going to be reading this book. These are everyday. The situations you put these characters in are not so fantastical that kids can't relate. I love that you put these kids in a trailer park, which is not normally a neighborhood authors write about for children.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, usually it's a big fancy house.
Right. I did not grow up in a trailer park. I didn't grow up in a very good part of town, but it wasn't a trailer park. And I wanted it to reflect nothing specific, but just overall the feel of my childhood growing up, where getting out away from the house,
Right.
off of the video games, away from all the electronics, get outside, play, have your own adventures, make your own adventures. That was what I wanted to have these kids do. That's what I did when I was growing up. That's what a lot of people did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well, it's not everyone, but that's the thing, is I find so many people can relate to it. And the thing that I get from a lot of people that have read it is it's a very the feeling overall is very reminiscent of their own childhood and having tons of adventures as long as you were home before the streetlights came on.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah. Be careful around the railroad tracks, and so you don't kill yourself, and,
Most definitely.
and be home when the streetlights come on.
Yeah.
So you're talking about going out and having your own adventures, and this differentiation between play and the video game world that so many of our children experience today. This leads me into a great segue. This is really a book about books. And that was one of the
Yeah.
things that really drew me to this story, because I love books about writers, books about libraries. If you've got that kind of content, I'll read it. you know?
That's your okay.
So one of the best things that you did with this story, and I don't really want to give a lot away.
That's the
It's
hard
a
part.
fine
Yeah.
line to walk, but what you do with this story is you allow books to be the gateway to imagination.
Yeah, most definitely.
And you make that a really amazing, positive experience. How did you come up with approaching the story that way?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. The whole premise of the book was not what made it to the page. The original premise of the book was 2 boys, each being a Jesse. So 2 boys being a troublemaker, a very spirited, and I found when I started writing it, I found it was kind of hard to find somewhere for them to go, and for the meat of the story to really happen. I wanted to write a book about 2 carefree boys getting in lots of trouble, but it didn't have any heart to it. So I came up with the idea, and I tried writing it to see how it would flow, of them being opposites. And Owen is a very intellectual,
Right.
boy. He is smart for his age, and he has his own chemistry set. He has shelves of books that he's read. Everything from real life to adventure, so lots of different things, but he loves to read. And that's one of they kind of stumbled on it, but that's one of the things that Owen brought to Jesse. The love of reading.
Yeah. I loved that he was the impetus for, oh, wait, there's something more than what can you destroy.
Yeah.
Right? I loved that he brings in this idea that, there's something more than what your big brother has convinced you play is. And he does have kind of a tyrant of a big brother in this story.
His brother, Jesse's brother, is kind of him and another character are the evil ones of,
I absolutely love, though, and I'm just going to say this, and then I won't say more. I love that he gets his comeuppance at the end. That was so validating for me because I'm a younger sister.
Well,
and I had an older brother who was a mild bit of a tyrant. So which is common for the age. He and I are 2 years apart, so it stands to reason it was going to come up. But I love that you incorporate that. Again, that's another part of those real life components that your story allows for.
And going back to your initial review of the book, you actually pointed out that not only was it about the comeuppance that he got, it was how the revenge came about.
Yes.
Again,
and we won't give it away.
Exactly. But that was very important for me too, to have it come around the way that it did. I gotta mark or change my words there just to not give it away. But
right.
The thing about it is the story from the very beginning is about Jesse and Owen having an effect on each other.
Right.
And that follows through the whole thing, and it culminates at the end with the revenge that they get.
The revenge of the little brother, which I love.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, let's segue into the next book. Have you found, you're a new author, you're a debut author, right? This is your first time going through this process.
Right.
Are you finding that writing the second book is simpler or more difficult? Is it simpler or more complex? I don't really want to put hard or difficult as the adjectives here because writing is work. We all know writing is work.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess my question is, did it become a more comfortable process as you're moving into writing the second book than it was with the first?
First let me say, I love Jesse and Owen. Who they are, their spirit, their souls, I love them completely. I intentionally made the second book more difficult. The reason I did that is I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to take what I put in the first book and give not only Jesse and Owen, but the readers more. So the story is more. Everything about the adventures, what they read, who they
okay.
play
So
with,
let me stop you right there. You've I'm asking because I'm being selfish here. You've maintained that idea of the books being central to the movement of the story.
I will go so far as to spoiler alert. I'll go so far as to say the second book begins with another adventure, another reading adventure.
Okay, good.
So you don't get Jesse and Owen until 3/4 of the way through the first chapter.
That's fantastic.
Right.
I love that. And when are you hoping that this is going to come out? Again, asking because I'm being selfish.
Well, I have a lot of people waiting, including my own mother.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah. I have allowed her to read what I have on book 2 so far, and she literally loves it and just is pestering me all the time in a good way. She wants to know. She's read the first couple chapters, and she wants to know what happens next.
What comes next?
Because I set it up that way to where I intentionally wanted to get the readers right away.
Well, yeah.
I wanted them.
That's best.
And that's what the first chapter does. And like I said, it's not even Jesse and Owen completely. But it sets up a totally different premise in their world. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's more.
Good.
You know, everything about it, it's more.
And again, when is it coming out?
I'm hoping to have it. I wanted to have it last year. I'm hoping, well, when I say last year, I mean 2018.
Okay.
It's not going to make it for 2019, but I will put it out there and say 2020, it will be out.
Excellent. Fantastic. So this is a show about authors, indie authors. You're in a very unique situation because you're one of the first debut authors that I've had on the show.
Awesome.
So I want you to share a little bit about what this journey has been like for you. You've done a couple of book festivals. You know, you and I met at Canterbury Village at a book festival there, and then you did the festival with me in June. And I'm curious about how this has changed your thoughts on writing craft. The idea that you have to, we were talking earlier off camera about market versus create. You have to do both.
Right.
And one is always more comfortable than the other. But how has the idea of market or thinking of your reader altered the way you write, if at all?
Let me say this, and it might be an answer, and it might be something completely different. But I've been writing since I was in 3rd grade. Okay, my first book was in 4th grade, and I went to, in Michigan here we have young authors. I went to young authors with that book in 4th grade, and then I wrote the sequel to that book in 6th grade and went to young authors again.
Awesome.
And then have wanted to be a writer ever since. And I'm 48 years old now. I've had a lifetime of not feeling good enough. Not somewhere along the line, my love of writing never went away, but my own insecurities kept me from completing that journey.
Let me just interject here. You are not alone.
Oh, I'm sure.
Every author I speak with has this same level of insecurity, even me. I mean, I'm never sure what I'm going to put out there is worthy of anybody actually reading it.
Yeah.
But I feel so compelled to write it that I can't stop myself.
Yeah, I've written so many short stories. You know, I thought maybe it was me just being a procrastinator and never completing. But it's more than that. It just my own insecurities just really held me back for my whole life until I had kids of my own. My daughter, 20 years old, but my sons are 14 and 12. And when my kids came along, I realized the only thing I can really do as a father is to be better for them.
Sure.
And one of the things that I wanted to show them was it's never too late to reach out and grab the brass ring. It's never too late to get that dream. So here I sat at 44 years old, and I started writing this book, and it took on a life of its own. And then I made it halfway through, and then I kind of gave up. And then one day we were driving, and my sons were in the back seat, and they out of the blue just asked me, "Hey, Dad, why don't you write your book anymore?" And I realized
they were paying attention.
Yeah, I was teaching them how to fail. You know, that's the thing, is the failure comes from not trying.
Right.
And I realized, here I wanted to be a better father, and here, I'm teaching my own children to fail.
It's that negative message. Yeah.
So I realized, it's I need to do it or stop basically it came down to put up or shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I decided, I'm going to finish this thing, which it needed to be finished. You know how it feels when you have that book inside.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I still felt that, but that old insecurity kept me from really completing it.
So let me ask you, I understand that introvertedness, insecuritiness, that I'm not real sure if I'm worthy. I don't know if I should put this out there. How do you combat that when you go to a book festival or you go to a signing event? And the reason I'm asking is because I know there are other new authors out there, or people who want to be debut authors and they're working toward that, who need to know how to balance that. So how do you combat that idea of, I'm not good enough?
Well, when I finally decided to finish it, and then it came down to the question of whether to get it published or not, and I didn't have anybody to talk to as far as how to do that. So I ended up self-publishing, and
no shame in that.
No, not at all. And that's the thing is, if it weren't for my children, I probably would have never even gotten that far. So here I am. I got this book, and then I don't know how to promote it, and then the Canterbury Village Author Fest came about, and I realized, even though I'm not real good talking about myself, I love talking about my book.
Yeah.
And give me talking about Jesse and Owen, and we'll have a good conversation.
Sure.
But I had to put myself out there, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I found myself at that festival, and luckily, my table partner.
That was a fun day. We had a really good day that day.
Yeah, I owe you a lot for helping. Like I was saying earlier off air, I owe you a lot for giving me that extra push and showing me that I'm in a room full of people that not only do they want their own books to succeed, they want to help each other, too.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing I love so much about the Michigan author community. Everybody is so warm and welcoming, and we all there's no competition here.
Exactly.
We all just want to see each other succeed and do well.
That shocked the heck out of me.
Because
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, it's not a part of what we normally see in day-to-day existence. Normally there's this huge competition of who's better or who makes more money or whatever. Creative souls are not like that. Writers, musicians, actors, artists, we're not like that. We're a little weird that way. In that we have a greater sense of collaboration than we do competition.
Yeah, and that combined with the sense of community that I experienced when I got there, I was just blown away by it. And the help that I've been given from not only you, but some of the others.
Sure. I saw at the festival we had in June, you were networking with other authors and learning things from other authors, and that I think that's fabulous. I mean,
it's not
that's 50%.
It's not natural.
Well, but that's 50% of why we do these events.
Yeah.
50% is we want to sell books and we want to create awareness for our work, but the other 50% is we want to be part of that writing community and get to know those other authors.
And that was only my second festival, but I felt way more comfortable that day because I had experienced the sense of community and realized that I'm not going to be, I don't know, I kind of imagined the worst. I just thought that it would be competitive and everyone would be out for each other or out for themselves and ready to stab others in the back just to get that. And it wasn't like that at all.
No, isn't that lovely?
It's yeah. And it gave
independent authors. That's the difference between, for me at least, of independent authors and traditionally published authors. And it's not a global thing, because I've met some wonderfully traditionally published authors, Christopher Moore and Steve Berry and some others, who are wonderfully welcoming and kind and supportive and astoundingly great people. But when you're really big and Simon & Schuster is publishing you, just like when you're an actor in Hollywood, there's a different buffer.
Yeah, I could imagine.
So when you work with independent authors, that buffer is different, and it's just, it's more of a community than a wall kind of situation, I think.
I've told anyone that would listen that, I've had other people ask me how those things run and what the atmosphere is like, and I expressed my shock and just the gratitude that I have for just everyone that took the time to come over and say hi to the new guy and ask about my book. They didn't have to do that, but they were genuinely curious and they wanted to welcome the new guy.
Right.
And that gave me the the confidence going into the second one in June to get up and network a little bit. It's kind of against my nature. I tend to be, like I was telling you before, kind of shy and more of a background player. But like I said, you get me talking about Jesse and Owen,
it's a different story.
And then it's a different story. Yeah. And that day gave me a lot of opportunity to talk about them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it definitely helps going forward because I feel like the next one, I'll, be even more comfortable.
So in the last couple of minutes here, we've just got like 2 minutes. What's been from a writing standpoint, what's been the biggest surprise that you've encountered in the craft? Not the marketing part, not festivals, that kind of stuff, but in the craft, in the creation process. What's been the biggest surprise for you as a new author?
It's funny. I've always had that urge to write that you really can't hold back, but it's really, really amped up the more that I actually get into it, the more people that I meet. And then I'm on Facebook, I'm friends with you and some others, and just that the camaraderie that I feel with some of the others, it amps it up, and I find myself going, I got to write even more. I'm still a procrastinator at heart, and it doesn't always work for me. Sometimes I can't get it flowing.
Oh, that happens to all of us.
But that's the thing is I'm way more excited to do it after I write a little bit. And it's just like a snowball.
Sure.
I just want to keep on going.
Yeah. When I saw Steve Barry read a couple of years ago, I was the only author in the room. And when I asked him a writing craft question, he said, "You are similarly afflicted, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, guilty.
Yep.
I have that disease."
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here today. I
thank you for
really
having
appreciate you coming in, and I look forward to book 2. Please send me a copy.
2020.
I need to buy another copy from you because I'm not giving up mine, but I have a niece who would love your book. So
most definitely.
I'll have to get another one from
you. That's another thing, real quick. Girls, I've gotten a lot of reviews from girls, and they love it too, even though it's about boys.
Yep,
there
no
are
question.
girls in there too.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you coming. Have a nice night.
Thanks, you too.